Welcome to Michael Potts F1, everything Formula One, but from a photographer's point of view. Actually, it's going to be a new year, so let's change that. Welcome to Michael Potts F1, every moment from every race. This year, I was able to attend every single Formula One Grand Prix. It was an incredible experience. So in this video, I'm going to look back over the entire season, picking out one photograph from each event and talking about that. So sit back and watch the 2024 season in 25 photographs, starting with winter testing in Bahrain. The season kicked off in Bahrain with 3 days of winter testing. And while every driver who finished the 2023 season remained in the same cars for 2024, we did have two teams with new identities. Alfa Romeo and Alfa Tauri became Stake F1 Team Kick Sauber and Visa Cash App RB F1 Team, respectively. Neither name are likely to be immortalised in Formula One history. Max Verstappen was entirely dominant in the opening race, 47 seconds ahead of the nearest best non-Red Bull car. It was a huge statement win. And coming after his near-perfect 2023, it looked very ominous for 2024. It looked like it was going to be another perfect Red Bull season on track. Carlos Sainz needed an appendix operation on the Saturday morning of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, and Ollie Behrman was rushed over from the F2 paddock to take his place. Never having driven this particular Ferrari and only having one practice session, he managed to clock the 11th fastest time in qualifying and raced to a highly impressive 7th place. This shot was taken as he prepared for his first Grand Prix. Max's dominance continued, a 100th podium for Verstappen and a Red Bull 1-2. Carlos came back for the Australian Grand Prix and he looked in so much pain. There was a lot of debate going about as to whether he'd be able to race or not. He did, and he managed to claim P2 in qualifying, and then he did something unheard of. He overtook Max Verstappen on lap 1. The Dutchman would retire on lap 2, and Carlos would hang on to claim a historic win. This is a shot taken of his father congratulating him. Normal service returned in Japan, with Max taking his third win of the season. This shot is taken under the bridge. I exposed this shot for the light under the bridge, and that meant that the area around the bridge was blown out completely, creating a rather unusual image. We returned to China for the first time since 2019, and this was the first sprint race of the year. Here is local hero Zhou Guanyu racing down the start-finish straight during the sprint qualifying session. There's a column of spray behind his Sauber. It was a very emotional weekend for the first Chinese driver to drive at his home Grand Prix. He was honoured by being allowed to stop his car on the grid and enjoy the crowd celebration at the end of the race. Zhou is not driving in F1 next year, so this moment would have been extra special. Max won the Grand Prix and Sergio Perez was third, the last time the Mexican would stand on the podium this year. The first American race in Miami saw McLaren bravely bring a large upgrade package to the second sprint race. This meant they didn't have much time to make sure everything worked perfectly. Thanks to a lucky safety car, Lando got his very first win in Formula One. This is a shot of him celebrating with the team after the race. A first win for a driver is always huge, but this was such a release for him because it came such a long time after he got so close to winning in Sochi in 2021. 30 years ago, tragedy struck at the San Marino Grand Prix in Imola, where Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna were tragically killed during the race weekend. Sebastian Vettel led the drivers and the paddock in a memorial run to remember these drivers who we've lost. Max won the race, giving him 5 victories in the first 7 races. A charging Norris was only 0.7 seconds behind him, so a few more laps could have made this rather interesting. Charles Leclerc won his hometown race for the first time, producing one of the great all-time qualifying laps around the Principality. Having come so close to winning in the past, only to be denied by bad luck or bad strategy, this was an extremely tense race, despite none of the top 10 changing position. My shot is of the team celebration, where you can see all of the joy released. My recap video of this race was my most popular, so check it out after this. From the procession in Monaco to mayhem in a very wet Montreal. One of the most exciting races, with the lead changing multiple times and Max Verstappen winning in a car that probably wasn't the fastest, but it was a race where he made all of the right moves. Red Bull nailed the calls perfectly and the Dutchman showed his championship class. My shot is of Lance Stroll whacking the wall of champions during Q1. Amazingly, he would end up 9th fastest in qualifying and finish 7th in the race. This was one of his best results of the year and a great recovery drive. The Circuit de Catalunya Barcelona is on borrowed time, with Madrid joining the calendar in 2026, and it feels unlikely that we'll have 2 Spanish Grand Prix for the years after that. Fernando Alonso has done so well to raise the popularity of Formula 1 in Spain, but he had a disappointing home race. It's been 11 years since he's won this event, and with Aston Martin being off the pace of the top 4 teams, he appears to be a bit downbeat in this shot. This race was won by Max after he overtook Lando at the start, a trend of failing to convert pole position into victories that would frustrate the Briton throughout the year. Alonso has announced that he will retire after the 2026 season. Austria saw the first flashpoint of the 2024 Drivers' Title Challenge. Max was leading the race after a good start, but Lando was closing rapidly, as you can see in this photograph. And then the 2 drivers clashed as Norris tried to go around the outside of Max at turn 3. The crash almost felt inevitable, as neither driver wanted to give the other an inch. Lando was forced to retire, but Max limped on to salvage 5th place. The big winner was George Russell, who was able to scamper through to claim his first victory of the season. The British Grand Prix was Lewis Hamilton's redemption win. This was his first win since Saudi Arabia in 2021. That's 36 races without standing on the top step. For the driver with the most victories in Formula 1 history, that is an incredible result. To get this win in front of his home fans, the people that have carried him to all of those 7 world titles, to do it with Mercedes before he leaves, it was the perfect ending to his illustrious time at the Silver Arrows. This photograph is of him celebrating on the podium. Team orders clouded McLaren's best result of the year and Oscar Piastri's first victory in Budapest. The team gave Lando the preferred pit stop window because he was under pressure from Lewis. That allowed him to jump Oscar on track, and the team didn't think that was right, so they asked Lando to hand the victory back, which is the most painful thing you can ask a driver, especially one who has just one victory to his name. Eventually, he did the right thing, despite it damaging his title challenge. George Russell won the Belgium Grand Prix after pulling off the perfect one-stop strategy, holding off a charging Lewis Hamilton until they weighed his car and they discovered he was 1.5 kilograms underweight. It was a fabulous race, but heartbreaking for the British driver. This photograph was taken on the podium during the celebrations just before he was disqualified. Lewis Hamilton inherited the win, giving him his 2nd victory of the year. A huge crash for Logan Sargent in wet conditions during FP3 of the Dutch Grand Prix pretty much ended his Formula 1 career. It happened roughly where this photograph is taken from. I think he probably would have hit the barrier near me had I been standing there at the time. The Williams was a bit of a crashy car in 2024. The 3 drivers collectively caused over $10 million worth of damage. When there's a cost cap of $135 million, that's a big chunk wasted. It was sad to see him leave the sport, but I think he would also agree that he never really pushed on. He got himself into some good positions, but never really capitalized on it. He also came across as a driver who looked like they didn't believe they belonged in Formula 1. He was quick at times, but he struggled to put a whole weekend together. Lando Norris delivered a statement victory in Max Verstappen's backyard, the first driver ever to defeat him at home. Charles Leclerc recorded a famous Ferrari victory at the team's home race in Monza. A huge crowd descended onto the main straight to celebrate the victory. I climbed up into one of the Marshall Towers on the pit wall to get this shot. It's always quite difficult to get a good podium shot in Monza, as there are very few vantage points which let you capture the whole spectacle completely. This was the perfect strategical race from Ferrari, one stopping to hold off Oscar Piastri. The Azerbaijan Grand Prix was only his 2nd race, the first time he had ever driven in Baku, the first time driving a Formula 1 car on a street circuit. He had been brought into Williams partly to reduce their repair bill, so when he put the car on the wall during practice, there might have been those at Williams who questioned their choice of driver. They shouldn't have, because he produced an incredible drive to secure 8th place, the only double points finish of the year for Williams. This shot was taken in front of the castle towards the end of the day as the sun was setting. The race was won by Oscar Piastri, delivering an epic drive to hold off a charging Charles Leclerc, paying him back for Monza. Singapore saw the last race in Formula 1 for Daniel Ricciardo. He signed off with the fastest lap. It was an underwhelming comeback in the junior team. His best result this year was 4th place in the Chinese sprint race. His results were underwhelming compared to his teammate, and that cost him his seat. And probably the most likeable driver with a larger-than-life personality has left the sport. He leaves with 8 victories, 32 podiums, and now 17 fastest laps. Lando Norris won the race, and the championship battle was really heating up at this point. This photograph of Nico Hülkenberg cresting the rise of the Circuit of the Americas. It's been a hugely impressive season for the German and the Haas team. He has propelled the worst performing team from 2023 into an unlikely 7th place in the championship, and Nico was 11th in the drivers. At the start of the season, there was a leadership change with Ayo Komatsu replacing Günther Steiner. The USA Grand Prix was an impressive home race for the team, with strong results throughout, a double points finish in the sprint race, and Nico getting 8th place in the feature race. Next season, Nico is off to Audi, and Haas will have Oliver Biermann and Esteban Ocon. This race was won by Charles Leclerc as Max and Lando clashed again on track, this time Lando being penalised for leaving the track and gaining advantage while overtaking the Red Bull driver. 2024 was a woeful season for the Mexican driver. The start of the season was pretty good. There were 3 second places in the first 4 races, and then a 3rd place in China, which was the last time he tasted champagne in 2024. Despite signing a contract extension just before the Canadian Grand Prix, the results were not there, and the gulf between him and Max became extreme. Baku looked like it was about to be a turning point. It was a race he could have won, if not for an avoidable crash with Carlos Sainz. That ended the race for both drivers, and his season cratered from there. A Q1 exit at his home race, followed by a penalty at the start, a clash with Red Bull rival Liam Lawson, and a P17th finish at his home race must have been the low point. For a driver who's endured such a difficult year, after much negotiations, he finally resigned after the season completed, triggering the final moves in the most tumultuous drivers' market we've seen in years. The race was won impressively by Carlos Sainz, collecting his final win for Ferrari after Max and Lando clashed, and the Dutchman received 20 seconds of punishment. In Brazil, Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly celebrated the most unlikely 2nd and 3rd results of the year, as both drove exquisitely in torrential rain. It was a great turnaround for the team that started the season opener in Bahrain stone cold last. And it was a beautiful moment for these 2 drivers who have such a shared history. They've come up through the junior ranks, but they've fallen out with each other. But here they were able to enjoy the moment together before Ocon leaves to join Haas. Max won the race, incredibly starting in 17th place and producing one of the great drives of Formula 1 history, effectively sealing the driver's title, in a race that, at one point, it looked like he could drop 30 points to Lando Norris. Max confirmed the driver's title by outscoring Lando Norris in the Las Vegas Grand Prix and clinching his 4th driver's title. While 2023 was completely dominant, this year Max needed to dig deep and produce some championship drives to win the Canadian and Brazilian Grand Prix against all odds. I waited hours to get this shot as Max was celebrating throughout the paddock, and he really took his time coming to the team celebration. The race was won by George Russell, who showed again that when the Mercedes is all hooked up, he can deliver the results. Valtteri Bottas is another driver to have a horrible season, finishing 22nd in a 20-driver championship and being the only driver to complete all races and not score a single point is a very sad end to one of the nicest characters of Formula One's career. In his 12 seasons driving for Williams, Mercedes and Sauber, he's managed 10 wins, 67 podiums, and he's been one of the best qualifiers, netting 20 pole positions. Max won the Grand Prix, leading the race from pole position. Gabriel Bortoleto wrapped up the Formula 2 title in style in Abu Dhabi, finishing 2nd in both the sprint and the feature race. A brilliant result from the young driver I'm most excited about seeing in Formula 1 in 2025. He won both Formula 2 and Formula 3 at his first go, and he's produced some epic results, such as winning Monza while starting last on the grid, against talented drivers in equal machinery. He is going to Sauber, and it will be hard for him to show his talent there, but watch out for him because he is special. This shot was taken after he came 2nd in the feature race, clinching his title. Lando won the race, claiming McLaren's first constructor title since 1988. Only in 4 occasions in the past 15 races has the winner of Abu Dhabi not gone on to win the driver's title the following year. And here is a bonus photograph, Yuki Tsunoda in a Red Bull during post-season testing. Despite performing excellently for Racing Bulls for the past 4 seasons, he has been overlooked for Perez's vacant seat. Instead, the team has gone for Liam Lawson to partner Max Verstappen, and Isaac Hadjar has been promoted to Racing Bulls. This might be the only time we get to see Yuki Tsunoda driving a Red Bull. Liam is going to have a massive challenge going up against Max, in a seat that is littered with the careers of vanquished drivers. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. I really do hope you've enjoyed it. If you'd like to see the photographs in more detail, there is a link in the description below. Before the season starts, I'm going to do a Q&A video, so if you have any questions about Formula One photography in general, please do ask me in the comments below, and I'll be sure to add that to the Q&A video. We've still got quite a long time before the season starts, so there will be some more videos coming out shortly. Until then, goodbye.